I used to believe buildings remembered the people who loved them. Not the loud ones. Not the rich ones. The quiet ones who locked up at 4 a.m. and stayed 10 extra minutes, just to make sure the lights were right. That belief died the night I started working the door at Emberline. At 1:47 a.m., the club smells like money trying to forget itself.
Sweat.
Cologne layered over regret. Citrus cleaner fighting a losing war against spilled champagne. The bass doesn't hit your ears anymore. It settles into your organs, vibrating your ribs like it's checking for structural weaknesses. That's where I stood. Left side of the entrance. Black blazer. Neutral face. Earpiece coiled like a leash behind my ear. I wasn't security. I wasn't management. I was access. And access is power, when you know how to wait. The line wrapped around the block, but she didn't wait. She never did. Maribel Crow arrived with 4 women who dressed like mirrors, everything polished, nothing reflective. Their heels clicked in formation, sharp and impatient, like a firing squad walking toward a verdict. Maribel didn't look at the line.
Didn't look at the sign. Didn't look at me.
She handed me her phone. Tell him we're here. I didn't take it. I'm going to need a name, I said. She looked at me then. Not angry. Not confused. Amused. Like someone who just discovered a typo in a document they didn't respect to begin with. Sweetheart, she said, smiling with only half her mouth. If you don't know my name, you don't belong on this side of the door. I nodded once. That may be true, I said. But tonight, I'm still the door. Behind her, one of her friends laughed softly. Maribel tilted her head, studying me. You're new. No, I said. I'm returned. She frowned, not because she cared, but because she hated sentences that didn't orbit her. She leaned closer. You're holding up the line. I am a line. That was my mistake. Because Maribel Crow didn't punish mistakes loudly. She cataloged them. She stepped back, tapped her phone twice, and said to no one in particular, interesting. Then she walked past me like I wasn't there. The bouncer hesitated. Looked at me. Looked at her. I shook my head once. He swallowed. Ma'am, he said, I'm going to need you to. She turned, eyes sharp. Do you know who owns this building? The bouncer froze. Everyone freezes when ownership enters the conversation. He looked at me again. I said nothing. Maribel smiled. Thought so. And just like that, she was inside. I stood there, pulse steady, hands loose at my sides. Because power doesn't rush. And I wasn't done waiting. 2 years earlier, Emberline had been mine. Not metaphorically.
Not spiritually.
Legally. I built it from a condemned theater with collapsed seating and a roof that leaked like a liar under pressure. I negotiated permits. I paid inspectors. I memorized fire codes. I slept on a folding chair in the office during opening week because the AC unit screamed if left alone. It was my place. Until it wasn't. Maribel didn't destroy me because I failed. She destroyed me because I said no. She wanted a private table during a charity gala. I told her it was booked. She smiled and said she understood. 3 weeks later, my liquor distributor pulled out. 2 days after that, a zoning complaint surfaced. Then a noise violation. Then an anonymous allegation involving staff misconduct. None of it stuck. But none of it had to. Investors hate smoke, even when there's no fire. By the time I realized what was happening, my name had become a liability. I sold Emberline under pressure. For 1/3 of its value. To a holding company owned by a man Maribel used to date. She came to the reopening, sat at the bar, raised a glass, and mouthed cheers at me through the window as I packed my office into boxes. I didn't respond. I was still naive enough to believe silence meant dignity. Back at the door, the night wore on. Maribel held court at table 7, the one closest to the DJ booth, with a sightline that made sure everyone could see her without her having to see them back. She laughed too loud, snapped her fingers for service, sent back drinks for being aggressive. Every humiliation was casual, practiced, like muscle memory. At 2:30 a.m., she stood and walked toward the restroom, nearly colliding with a server carrying a tray. The tray tilted. One glass shattered. Champagne soaked Maribel's dress. The room inhaled. The server froze. Maribel looked down at herself, then up at the girl. Slowly. Are you stupid? She asked calmly. Or just poor? The girl's mouth opened. No sound came out. Maribel turned toward me. You, she said, pointing. Get her away from me. I stepped forward. I'll take care of it, I said. Good, Maribel replied. Fire her. I can't do that. Her eyes flicked to my face again. Why not? Because she works for me. That was the moment. The precise second gravity shifted. Maribel laughed. A sharp, incredulous sound. You check wristbands, she said. Sit down. I didn't. I took another step forward. I don't check wristbands, I said. I audit risk. Her smile faltered. Just a little. Enough. She straightened. Who do you think you are? I leaned in, voice low enough that only she could hear. The last person you should have ignored. She stared at me. Then she laughed again. This time louder, brittle. Get him out of here, she said. The bouncer hesitated. Again.
He looked at me.
I smiled. Take a breath, I said quietly. Check your phone.
He did.
His face changed. Color draining. Problem. Maribel snapped. The bouncer swallowed. There's been a change. What kind of change? He looked at me again. I nodded once. A structural one, he said. Maribel's jaw tightened. This is absurd. Is it?
I asked.
Because according to the paperwork filed at 11:58 p.m., you're standing on private property without authorization. The music cut. The DJ didn't know why. He just felt it. The room went silent. Phones came out. Maribel turned slowly. This isn't funny. I agree. I gestured toward the bar. The screen behind it lit up. A new logo. A new name. A recorded deed timestamped less than an hour earlier. Her mouth opened.
Closed.
Opened again. You can't do this. I already did. She looked around for allies. Found none. Power evaporates fast when it's exposed to light. Escort Miss Crow out, I said. She stared at me. You're nobody. I smiled. That's what made this easy. The bouncer stepped forward. Maribel recoiled. You'll regret this, she hissed. I leaned closer.
No, I said.
You will. She was walked out. Not dragged. Not shoved. Just removed. Like expired inventory. The door closed behind her. The bass returned. The crowd exhaled. I turned back to the floor. Drinks are on me, I said. The roar was deafening. I didn't stay long. Power doesn't need applause. I went upstairs. Sat alone at table 7. The table that was always reserved. For me. Let her wait. Minutes passed. Then 10. Then 15. The line didn't move. Phones came out. Whispers spread. At 22 minutes, she stormed in. No entourage. No smile. She walked straight toward me like this was still her city. This ends now, she snapped. I didn't look up from the clipboard. Name? She laughed once. Sharp. You're obsessed. No, I said. I'm consistent. She leaned closer. You think people won't notice you abusing power? I finally looked at her. You think they didn't notice you doing it first? Her jaw tightened. I built this scene. You rented it, I replied. And the lease expired. She straightened. I'm giving you one last chance. I checked my watch. You're late. For what? For realizing you don't negotiate from the lobby.
She scoffed.
You're still the door. I nodded. Yes. Then I stepped aside. And doors, I added, decide who leaves. Security appeared, not aggressively. Professionally.
She saw it.
Understood. For the first time, fear cracked through her expression. This isn't over, she said. I leaned in. It is, I replied. You just haven't finished falling yet. She was escorted out again. This time, people filmed. This time, no one laughed. They just watched. The article dropped Monday morning. Not gossip. Not rumor. An investigative piece. Detailed. Footnoted. Titled, When Influence Becomes Abuse, The Quiet Power Behind Nightlife Blacklists. Maribel's name appeared 14 times. Screenshots.
Dates.
Audio transcripts. By noon, her foundation suspended operations. By evening, 3 board members resigned. By midnight, she deleted her social accounts. Power doesn't explode. It leaks. I stood alone at Emberline after closing. Same spot. Same table. The one always reserved. Not for dominance. For memory. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt balanced. Justice doesn't cheer. It exhales. And somewhere out there, Maribel Crow was learning something new. That doors don't forget. They just wait. Maribel Crow didn't leave quietly. People like her never do. She left the way storms retreat, loud, sideways, breaking things on the way out and pretending the destruction was accidental. The night she was removed from Emberline, she didn't go home. She didn't cry into silk pillows or call a lawyer immediately. She did something far more dangerous. She started telling her version of the story. And that's how I knew she still didn't understand the rules. Power hates embarrassment more than loss. Loss can be negotiated. Embarrassment metastasizes. By Monday morning, the story was everywhere, just not the right one. According to Maribel, she'd been ambushed. Set up by a disgruntled former employee. Humiliated by a man pretending to own property he didn't understand. Her favorite word was delusional. She used it in interviews, texts, emails. She said it with the confidence of someone who had never been contradicted publicly, which was ironic because the internet loves receipts, and I had been collecting them for 2 years. At 9 a.m. Tuesday, I walked into Emberline as its owner for the first time in daylight. Nightclubs are honest in the morning. No bass, no smoke, no illusions, just scuffed floors, lipstick-stained glasses, and the echo of decisions people don't remember making. I didn't sit at a desk. I walked, measured sight lines, noted cracked tiles, listened to the building breathe. Ownership isn't about control. It's about responsibility. And I intended to be very responsible. At 9:17 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. You embarrassed me, Maribel said, skipping hello. No, I replied. I documented you. Silence. Then laughter.
Low.
Dangerous. You think this ends with a door? I think it ends with math. She exhaled sharply. You don't belong in my world. That's funny, I said. Because you've been living in mine rent-free for years. Her voice dropped. You're going to reverse this. I can't. You won't. I won't. Another pause. Then the threat, delivered softly like a favor. I can make sure no one works with you again. I smiled. You already tried that.
Click.
She hung up. Maribel moved fast. That was her advantage. She called investors, venue partners, lifestyle press she'd fed for years. Whispers bloomed. He's unstable. There's a lawsuit coming. Something's shady about that sale. Old tactics. Effective on people who panic. I didn't. Because while Maribel was making noise, I was making systems. By Thursday, Emberline staff contracts had been rewritten. By Friday, the liquor distributor reported to me directly. By Sunday, every camera feed, interior and exterior, was backed up off-site with timestamps. I wasn't preparing for war. I was preparing for gravity. The email arrived at 11:42 p.m. Subject, Notice of Intent. Maribel's legal team. Allegations.
Demands.
Deadlines. I forwarded it to my attorney. Then I went asleep. People mistake calm for weakness. Calm is what happens when you've already won the argument in your head. The next Saturday, Emberline was full again. Different crowd. Quieter wealth. Industry eyes. People who don't post everything they touch. Maribel wasn't there, but her absence screamed. At 12:08 a.m., the host leaned over. She's outside. I nodded. The week after, the city moved like it always did, loud, impatient, dressed in neon and ambition, pretending nothing had changed. But small shifts told the truth. The velvet rope no longer curved for whispered names. It hung straight, almost severe. Guest lists grew shorter, cleaner, stripped of favors and coded initials. Sponsors stopped calling after midnight and started sending lawyers instead. Managers reread contracts with a seriousness that felt like prayer. Power, when exposed, doesn't disappear. It relocates. It looks for shadows. It tests new hosts. At Emberline, the air itself felt different. Not lighter, clearer. Like a room after a storm where the dust finally settles and you can see what was always there. One evening, a young promoter stood where Maribel once had. Tailored suit, confident posture, eyes alert, not arrogant. He watched the crowd, then the door, then me. "Is it true," he asked quietly, "that one person can really stop someone like her?" I shook my head.
No.
One person can't. I tapped the clipboard again. The sound sharp in the silence. But a system that remembers can. A record that can't be erased. Witnesses who stop whispering. Doors that stop bending. He absorbed that, the way people do when they realize the world is more structured than they thought, and more fragile. Later that night, after the last glass was cleared and the last bass note faded into the street, a message buzzed on my phone. Unknown number. No greeting. No signature. "You didn't destroy me. You exposed me." I stared at the words for a long moment. Destruction is chaos. Exposure is light. And light, once introduced, never fully leaves a room. I didn't reply, because answers would have fed the story. Silence lets it starve. Weeks passed. Maribel's name stopped trending, but it didn't stop echoing. Committees formed.
Policies changed.
Background checks grew deeper. A few more articles surfaced, smaller, quieter, but no less precise. Not vengeance. Documentation. One night, a woman in a simple black dress approached the desk. No cameras. No assistants. Just tired eyes and steady hands. "I used to work for her," she said. "I thought what happened to me was normal." I met her gaze. It wasn't. She exhaled like someone setting down a heavy bag after a long walk. "Thank you for holding the line," she said. I nodded. That's what doors are for. After closing, I returned to the reserved table. Same seat.
Same view.
Not a throne. A marker. A place that reminded me why boundaries exist, not to punish, but to protect. Not to dominate, but to define. Justice isn't a parade. It's a quiet realignment. A slow correction. A long, steady breath after years of holding it in. Somewhere across the city, Maribel Crow was rebuilding, rebranding, reframing. People like her always do. But now, every room she entered had an invisible outline. Every invitation came with conditions. Every smile carried a calculation. Because doors don't forget. They don't hate. They don't gloat. They don't chase. They simply remember who tried to force them open. And they wait.